most of you here tonight are brand new to Actions, and we are glad to have you. That's the whole reason we did this, is to help new Photoshop users get the hang of Actions, of what they are, how to use them, when to use them, and so on. So first, let me explain how to install Actions in Photoshop. There are two ways to do it, and actually a third way that's a lot more difficult. I'm not even going to show it. But both ways are very, very simple. And let's just say that you don't even know where your action panel is. And so I'm going to show you really quickly how to install Actions. If you're not sure where your action panel is, click on Window and then go down and click on Actions. And then your action panel will come to the forefront wherever it is. So let's say I've pulled this out and I've closed it up and it's gone. Like, I can't see my action panel. And I will say that when I did freak out when I first started using Photoshop. And I guess I had closed down my action panel, but I couldn't find it. And I'm about to cry. So I wanted this message board. I lost all my actions. And somebody just said, go to Window. So go to Window and Actions. And it'll pop back up wherever you have it nestled, okay? And if you have yours pulled out and sit over here, then that's where it's going to pop up. Or if you have it down here, in this little area. And you notice that I'm showing you that you can rearrange the panels in your Photoshop. And if you didn't know that, surprise, you can. So I'm going to, I'll nestle mine down right up here. I might move adjustments just for housekeeping's sake here. Move this over a little bit. Okay. All right. So once you have, you have your action panel open, if you go over to the corner of it, there is a little triangle with a bunch of lines. And it highlights when you hover over it. I'm going to click on it. You can come down and go to Load Actions. Okay. Click on that and then go to wherever you saved your action set that you downloaded, wherever that was, downloads folder or somewhere else. And then you click on the .atn file, .atn, and that's it. It's just as easy as it is. Mine are kind of a mess. Let's see if I have any. I have a bunch of presets out here. Don't have any actions. Mine are all installed, and then I've saved them. I saved them on a thumb drive that's not hooked up. So I back them up. So that's how you install the Actions. The other way you can do it is you can just double click on the file. Let's say you downloaded it and then you unzipped it. You just find the .atn and double click on it. It's going to open up Photoshop, and then the set will open up in the action panel. And that's it. It's so simple. It is so simple to install Actions. Okay, now, so I showed how to install them, but let me get back to an even more basic question than that. What are Actions? They really are very simply put, just like a macro. Years back when I was in school, that's what they called any type of recording of particular steps was called a macro. And that is what an action is. It is recording certain steps so that we can hit play and it just pushes those out and plays those same exact steps. And Actions are super handy for making your workflow faster. And I know there are some photography forum boards, and some of the people be like, well, I edited all on my own. I didn't use any Actions. And that is fine and dandy, and I'm happy for people to do that because then they really learn how to use their program. However, I am busy. I got 4 kids. I have a side business. I homeschool. I need things that make it go quick. I don't have time to be going to every little thing and tweaking every little thing. I enjoy Actions. I enjoy presets in Lightroom. I enjoy Actions in Photoshop because they save me time. And I'm not ashamed to say it. Okay? All right. So Actions are just steps that have been recorded. All right. We have different types of Actions. Okay? Let me show you really quick. I'm taking my jacket off because it got a little hot. I move, y'all can't see me, but I got my hands just to go in. I get real energetic during the webinars. All right. So there are different types of actions, and I'm here in this panel. I'm going to pull it out just so y'all can see it a little bit better here, okay? And there are what I classify 3 different types of actions. There are cleaning actions, and there are that help give you a good clean edit. And then there are creative actions. So this is a workflow set that we're going to use today for the actions pure. And you see it's exposure, brighten, darken, contrast, clarity, make warmer, make cooler, color boost. We got down here softening skin, eye sparkle, teeth and eye whiten. So it's helping the image look as good as it can and still look like it could have come from the camera that way. That's what we call a clean edit. So cleaning or workflow actions are one little genre of actions, okay? And then the other one that I consider is creative actions. And so we come down here, and inside the pure workflow are workflow plus creatives. So down here, the color actions, these are creative. They're going to give the image a little bit different look that may intensify certain colors, maybe a black and white, might be urban or vintage or light and airy, what have you, where it slightly alters it, where really people look at it and think, you know, yes, something's been done to the image. It didn't come out of the camera that way, but that's okay. People still appreciate those photos. And then we have what I consider so here's a bunch more. And then I consider finishing actions. And those would be actions that help you wrap things up, okay? Like sharpening or vignette or saving for the web, those kind of things. And those we have down here at the bottom. And those just help finish up and wrap things up so that you can move on to the next picture. So we have cleaning or workflow, creative, and finishing. Okay, that's just my little doodad of information that I go by. All right. So oops, see, I closed it down. Shouldn't have done that. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to put it back in here. And what I'm doing, and I know I'm probably going to get some questions about it, I'm just clicking somewhere in the little bar so I can click on it and move it. And then I hover over where I want it to go. And once it gets a little blue line all the way around it, I let go, and then it's nested right there. Okay, it's going to be anchored in that one spot. Okay, so we're going to get started using actions. Now, I will say the biggest mistake people make with actions is they don't realize that they have to interact with them. And I'm guilty of that. When I first started using actions, I actually contacted the action creator because I was like, these don't work. Nothing's happening. Oh, I was so new to Photoshop. And I had to actually use them, use a brush and reveal. So I'll show you that. But that is the biggest mistake people make is they think, oh, I just need to run it and I'm done. And then they get upset and they think, oh, what's wrong? It's not working. So we're going to edit this picture, and I'm going to show you really quick to show, where we're going to go with this. Okay, so that's where we're going to go. That's our clean edit. Okay, we start with this one. Beautiful picture to start with, but the white balance is a little off. It's a little underexposed, and so we need to work on those things. And so I get it to right here. And then honeysuckle. That's my creative edit, and I love that. I mean, I love that. If that was my daughter, I would print that super large. I would love that picture. Okay, so we're going to start here, and I'm going to talk about these little snapshots. Don't worry, we'll get there. Okay, so I'm going to use the color workflow, pure color workflow. Now, I'm a big workflow kind of girl. I like to get a good clean edit, and I save that, and then I work on the creatives. Okay, so we're just going to go down the line. Now, I will tell you that one thing that most workflows are not going to have is any way for you to magically alter your white balance, perfectly alter your white balance. Yes, some will be able to make it warmer or make it cooler or things like that. I would say knowing how to adjust your white balance is something you just need to know, because very few actions are going to get it right, because every picture is a little bit different. So let's start with learning how to adjust your white balance. Okay, that's the only thing we're going to do on our own. So down here at the bottom, there's different ways to go about getting to this layer. And I could go to adjustments. Okay, whoops, I want that up higher. But I cannot get it to go up higher. Okay, so I'm going to click on levels. I could do that. Or if I'm on the layers, I could come down to this circle that's half black, half white. Click on that. I'm going to do a levels adjustment. It's just what I like. I like levels for adjusting white balance. Now I'm going to increase the size of my photo. And how I'm going to do that is with the Command key on a Mac or Control key on a PC, Command and the plus sign. So I'm holding the two keys down at the same time, Command and then plus. And I'm zooming in because I want to be able to get to the whites of her eyes. And I'm going to click on the gray dropper here, the gray dropper. And then I'm going to click on the whites of her eyes. And you see how that very quickly went from a heavy on magenta color tones there to now we got a little too much green. And I really couldn't get much better than that. So that's a little better. That's a little better. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop there. All right. So that was the first thing I did, and I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to do white balance fix. All right. Now, we need to brighten this picture. It's a little dark. So I'm just going to click on exposure brighten and then hit play. So when we're in the folder view, and there's different views, we can be in the button view. I'm going to click on the little corner and go to button mode. Now button mode, it puts every single thing out there. And for me, it's too much. Too much for me to try and see. My eyes are not that good anymore. So I like the folder view better. So I undo the button mode. Oh, the nice thing about the button mode is you just click on it. You don't have to click on it and hit play. And I wish Photoshop would adjust it so we could just double click on an action and it plays, but it doesn't work that way. You have to click on it. So we got to turn it like a blue color and then hit the play button. Okay, so we see that it brightened it and it's in a folder here, and we can look at all these different things we can do with it. Anytime you see a little folder view, you can open it up by clicking on the triangle because these different layers are nestled inside of this one. Now, I want to stop to say that I know a lot of people here are thinking, I don't even understand layers, Amanda. You're a little ahead of where I need to be right now. I will go back and we'll talk about layers, I promise, along the way, plus a little bit just isolated. But we're going to, because layers are essential to actions. Okay. It's easiest when I start getting to the black layers to, focus on that more. Or black mask, sorry. Okay, so each layer I can click on and adjust a little bit. So if I want to lighten up a good bit more here, I could do that. But maybe I need to keep the contrast. I'm going to bump that up a little bit. Or, so you could individualize it with each layer, go through it with each one. Or you could just keep it where it was. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to run it again. And instead of going in and tweaking each little one, I could just use this as the group as a layer as a whole. Okay, so we have opacity, and this is how much of this group that we're seeing. And we're only seeing 35% of it. And I'm going to increase it by clicking and dragging up. So I'm getting more and more and more. I'm seeing more and more of the effects of these layers. Okay. Yes, you could go into it, and we will go into some of these folders. However, sometimes it's just quicker to adjust the group layer instead. So I want to brighten it up a good bit. Okay. Now it's a little hazy. I want some contrast. So I'm going to come up here to clean contrast and click and do that. So I'm doing one at a time as I see that we need. Okay. One at a time as I see that we need. Sorry, I have the sniffles. I think the allergies are going here already. I'm in South Carolina, and I think spring's fixing to start. Anyway, so I've got the sniffles, and I apologize. Okay, so we already have a much improved image, don't we? Very, very quickly. I'm holding down, so these eyes are showing us that these layers are active. The layer that I'm currently on is the one that's highlighted. Your interface might be a lot darker than mine, but other than that, it should all be the same. Well, I may have changed my layout a little bit, sorry. But over here in the layers panel, it's the same. So if I click on the eye, it hides that, or it makes it invisible or inactive. And I click on it and it reactivates it. If I come down here to the bottom layer, to our background, and I hold down my Alt key on a PC or Option key on a Mac and click, it's going to turn off all the layers except for the background where we got started from. And so I can see before and after. Now I can come down and just keep doing things I want. So I might say, okay, I want warmer. You can freshen up the shadows, freshen up the highlights, tame color cast. I don't think we have any color cast here. Color boost. So I'm going to run the color boost. Now, I like what the color did for the rest of the image, but I don't so much want it on her or her hair, or I don't want as much of the effect. Okay, so here's a little bit of layers. We're going to do this layers tutorial in bits. Layers is like transparencies of an overhead projector. So we have these different layers, and we're always looking from the top down, and we can, if say somebody drew a flower very faintly, okay, then it's going to be faint. But if we drew it, very dark, it's going to be. Now I could go back into the one of those layers and just lightly rub off some of it. Still see some of it, but just not as much, right? Because I've lightly rubbed off, and those layers are all working together. They're see-through. We can see down between them, and so here we have full effect of this particular layer, but I don't want all of it. So I'm going to take a brush. This mask is here for us to make use such that we can conceal areas that we don't want it to be to show as much. Okay, and I want my brush tool. And if your brush tool, let's say you're on the crop tool or whatever, if you want to be on your brush tool to quickly get there, just hit B on your keyboard. Okay, now make sure you're in normal mode. Okay, here's another thing. When I was first learning Photoshop Elements, I started with Photoshop Elements, and I kind of went to Photoshop, then I went back to Photoshop Elements. It was just easier in my mind for a long time. And anyway, my brush stopped working, and I was like, oh my gosh, my brush is working. Oh my gosh, it's broke. What am I going to do? So I searched and searched and searched online, and couldn't find anything to help me. And lo and behold, I don't know how I found it. It was just that I had somehow turned it onto like color dodge or something, but it was not what it should be. So make sure that you are on normal. Now, here I have a little arrow showing me, hey, there's stuff up. But when I was on a PC years ago, it didn't show me that either. It just was gone. And and then I thought, oh, my normal's gone. I can't find my normal. And I just had to push my mouse up, and it went up and was on there. So just jot that down in case your brush stops working. Make sure you're on the right mode. Okay, so normal mode, and then we have opacity. This is kind of like how strong we want to cover up, or how strong we want to reveal. So here we're going to cover it up. We're going to conceal an area. And I don't want to conceal all of it. I just want to conceal some of it. So I'm going to go down to, roughly 50%, 49%. And then my brush, see, it's a little circle right now. It's teeny tiny. We want that to be bigger. And yes, I could come up here and increase the size of it, but that is time consuming because I can just use my keyboard. If you look to your keyboard, the letter P, there are two brackets to the right of the letter P, a left bracket key and a right bracket key. Click the right bracket key, and it's going to make that brush much bigger and then much smaller. Okay, so the left bracket key makes it smaller, right bracket key makes it bigger. So I'm going to make it nice and big. You can cover a lot more area with a larger brush. I've helped people before, and they'll have this little tiny brush, and they're trying to cover this big area. I'm like, make your brush bigger. So make it bigger. And now I'm going to click and just drag. And wherever I brush, it's going to cover up. See here? It's like this gray came up. on the mask. So that's showing us that we have just covered up or concealed some of that particular effect, that layers effect, right here on this area. Okay. I'm gonna keep going. I don't want to spend it because I have another picture on edit, so I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so now I've kind of just gotten some overall good changes going here. I'm actually come down here to the clean contrast and move up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna come back to color boost, and now I'm gonna go to Oh So Soft Skin. I'm gonna hit play. So now we're gonna soften her skin, work on her eyes a little bit. And I'm using the Pure Color set, but this applies to any action set. This is just how you use actions, okay? So here it says paint with a soft white brush to reveal smooth, creamy skin. So I'm hit continue. So my layer is down here at the bottom, and that's great. And there's a reason for that. All right, now I am going to just stay right here, make sure that this is highlighted, and I'm going to use my brush, but now I need to be a white brush because what this black mask is doing is it's hiding everything. So those layers are like transparencies, but then we have these masks. So the white mask, we can use a black brush to hide some areas. With a black mask, we can't see any changes until we use a brush and draw it out. Draw it to the surface so that we can see it, okay? And this is where I contacted the person and said, this action doesn't work. And really what it was, I was not using a brush. I did not know enough about layers at that point and didn't realize with a black mask I needed to use a white brush. So I'm sure some of y'all have made that same mistake or will, so I wanted to go ahead and just throw it out there in case it happens to you, and you'll know, oh, I got to do something with this. There's a black mask. So when you see a black mask, you have got to interact with it. You have got to use a brush and draw it out. Okay, so my brush tool right here. Now, I breezed through the whole white and black brush thing, didn't I? So up here at the white layer mask, we used, with a white mask, we needed a black brush. And I just went on forward. I didn't show you how I had a black brush. Here on a black mask, and I need a white brush, so I'm going to show you how. Down here at the bottom of your toolbar is two colors. One is your foreground color, and one is your background color. If there are particular, like say purple and blue or pink and yellow, whatever, you can reset them by hitting X on your keyboard. So X will reset those colors, black and white. I'm sorry, D. Oh, I'm trying to think now. I haven't done it so long. X goes back and forth. I'll just think about it. I have to change it. Okay. Anyway, so X makes it go back and forth. And if I am on a black mask and I want it to be white and it happens to be black right now, I just hit X and it flips it. You can also hit the little arrows. That will flip it back and forth as well. Okay, so I want a white mask. Now I'm going to go ahead and move my brush opacity up to 100%. Just for kicks and giggles, it's going to be there for right now. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my entire screen red so that I can see better where I'm brushing. It's not a guessing game. And how I'm going to do that is if you look at your keyboard and look at your enter key or your return key, the little key right above it, it's a little slash key, a little diagonal key, and I'm going to click on that. Okay, it's the one just to the right of the right bracket key. Okay, click on that. Now, oh, there we go. Make sure I have a white brush. And wherever I brush, it's going to turn like this pistachio color. See that? All right, so that's just showing me where I brush. And just helps me go along faster. Some people are really particular about where they brush and get it all perfect, but I just kind of haphazard. I don't make it so perfect, although I'm probably doing a little better with this one here. And I tend to get the neck area. Okay, so I'm going to hit the little diagonal slash key again, and it's on there. Now, it's a little too smooth for me, so I'm going to deactivate the layer, hit the little eyeball. So there's before, and there's after. What I'm going to do is lower down the layer opacity. So that layer opacity is how much we see of the total of all the layers inside that group or that one particular layer, like with here, my levels layer. If it's at 100%, we're seeing all of it, full force. You got it. If we lower it down, we're just saying, hey, we're just going to kind of turn down the pressure, and so we don't see quite as much of it. So I don't like super smooth skin. I want them to look human, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is a little bit of this cheeks and lips because it's just kind of fun. And it tells you, these particular actions tell you what to do. Some action sets may not have these type of prompts, and that's okay too. Paint with a soft white brush to reveal pink cheeks, lower the opacity when painting over the lips for subtle pop of color. Okay, since this is a little girl, I don't really want much, so I'm going to lower it down to about, 40%. Make my brush smaller. Come on in here. Okay. Actually, I may increase that a little bit. Now I'm going to lower it down, and I'm just going to give her cheeks a little bit of color. I'm just going to go boop, boop, like click, click. That's all I did. Okay, now eye sparkle. Now here it's telling us, open the folder in your layers panel and select the black layer mask for each adjustment you want to make. So it's saying, please open this up. You need to interact with this. They're all black masks. We need to draw out the change. So eye clarity. I'm going to come here, I'm going to start at the bottom. It's all about brush opacity, layer opacity, interacting with the layers. That is how to use actions. So here I'm just clicking. All right, contrast. I don't think I need any contrast. Bold lashes. I'm going to reduce this down a good bit. Make my brush smaller, and I'm just going to run over her lashes. Line the iris. I don't want that bold catch lights, and so I'm just going to click, click. Oops, but I want. You got to remember your brush opacity. Okay. Close that back up. Try and keep your layers panel tidy. That's another thing that's important, okay? Keep it tidy. Her eyes are really white. I don't feel like I need to do anything with that. Okay. Now, if I had some color cast that I feel like we need to tackle, there are things you can do that. There's some brushes down here in this set, okay? So we could selectively sharpen, paint off color cast, and I'm able to use that in the next one I edit real quick. But I want to come up here, okay? So I'm going to go back to the history panel and see this little camera. If you can't find your history panel, go to Window, down to History. The little camera will allow you to take a snapshot so we can get back to it. And I like to name my snapshots. So here it is, the one I just took. I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to do Web Clean Edit. Okay. Now we can come through and use some creatives. And I will tell you, it would be handy to save this because this is not Lightroom. These changes are not here forever. Should your Photoshop crash and all of a sudden it closes, guess what? Your edit is gone. It will not save it back up. It's not going to save it as a PSD for you. It's goner. Lightroom, it's always saving. It saves all your snapshots. You can open Lightroom up in a month and it's all there, but that's not how Photoshop works. So if you spend a lot of time getting a nice, good, clean edit, then you want to go, and if you want to save the layers, we want to save these layers, okay? This is open. We want to save these layers. I'm going to do Save As. And then down here is Format. And yes, on a PC, it's going to look a little bit different. I think it's just File Type is what it says. Click on Photoshop or PSD, whatever it is. Make sure that Layers is checked. And here, I generally don't even name it because I only usually save one PSD, so I'd let it be the same name as the file. The PSD, so that if it crashes, which has happened to me with things before, is all of a sudden Photoshop stopped working and it closed it. I have to close it down and my edit's gone. So just be careful about that. All right. And then what it did is it gave me another little snapshot because at that save time. All right, so now I'm gonna come back to the actions, and we could flatten. And a lot of people have questions about this whole flattening thing. It's very mysterious, and the debate: flatten or don't flatten. You know, you have big don't flatten camps and big flatten camps. So honestly, if I've saved it as a PSD, I don't mind flattening it just for simplicity's sake. So basically, so what is flattening? You're taking all these layers that are open and it's like putting them in a little vice grip and going and clamping them down, and we'll have a new background. So see, our background right now is that magenta color. I'll change my, let's see, panel options. There we go. Okay. So you see that my background here is that magenta color-ish image, the straight of the camera one, right? And if I flatten, now I'm going to undo that because that's really big. Okay, so there, that's better, it's medium. Okay, so when I flatten, go to Layer, Flatten Image. So now my new background is this nice, clean, beautiful, fresh, and airy one. We're just starting with a new base, And if I've saved my PSD and I have it in my history, I can always get back to it. All right, and so I'm okay with that. So I just wanted to show how to flatten if you want to. I didn't flatten with these up here, so I'll show both ways. I'll show this one flattening, and then I'll go back and show these open. Okay, now let's do a few creative. So we can do light and airy. I really liked honeysuckle, so let me play honeysuckle on this. So I click on it, and these are creatives where it's going to give you just, you know, some fun color changes. And there it is before and after. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. We can make it a black and white. Each one of these comes with a black and white option. So there's the black and white option, which is beautiful too, but I do prefer the color on this one. All right. Now, I think I also liked, which ones did I do? Velvet color. Okay. Velvet color. All right, and it has like this velvety, creamy look to it. I just thought it was beautiful too. All right, so you can try any of those. Then they have these different little toners where you can add like a center light. Oh, we can add a vignette, lush film. So there's different things that you can do to give it a more, some of it just still looks like it is a clean edit, and then some of it will definitely give it just a creative look as well. That lush film is beautiful too. I like that. All right. So many to choose from. Lush film. Okay. Let me show real quick. So with like honeysuckle, here you can still run creatives when you have open layers, like you did a big clean edit and you did all this work. You can still run a creative. Now, sometimes an action might give you fits and to keep saying, you know, giving you problems or errors. Try flattening and then running it, because what's happening is it may be running into just some type of incompatibility or something's going on with those open layers. And so if you just save the as a PSD, the open layers, make a snapshot, and then flatten it, and then try running the action, then it will probably give you no trouble. All right. I was going to do this one. Now, this is straight out of the camera. And these are raw files. I didn't do anything in ACR to them, so they are just as they are. This one, exposure is pretty good. White balance is a little off. It's a little hazy, which you might think, oh, I love it just like it is. And that is, hey, that's fantastic too. Me, I want to edit this one a little bit. So I'm going to go through and just do the same thing I did before. And the nice thing about, the reason I chose to use pure color workflow tonight, and because they left it up to me as to what set to use, is because this gives me workflow and it gives me creative actions, and it's everything I want in one. So that's why I'm using it. All right. So I'm going to do clean contrast. All right. So if we needed more contrast, I can increase it if I need to. I'm also going to do clarity. Now clarity, whoops. Clarity is probably using, it's using an unsharp mask, and it does kind of defog, but the problem is it could make like hair and things that we don't want to get too edgy looking. And I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to blow it up so you can see. So before and after. And so we're getting too much detail in the hair. And I want to be careful of that. I'd like a soft, not too strawy looking. And so here we got a white mask. If I want to cover up an area using that mask, I use a black brush. So my brush is active. It is black right now. And the opacity is at 76%. I'll leave it there. And then I make my brush bigger, and I'm just going to paint over her hair so that we don't get. Another thing to look for too is like skin, and if there's blemishes or wrinkles or things like that, the clarity might define those a little bit too much. And I got to tell you, I've got wrinkles, and I don't want them extra defined, so you might cover those up a little bit. All right. The color here, it's okay, but I'm going to do a really quick white balance tweak, see if I find one I like better. So I click on the gray dropper. When you open up levels, you have a black, gray, and white droppers on the left side. I click on the gray dropper, and then I'm going to click in the whites of her eyes. And that's good, but it's a little too green. So I'm going to keep clicking around. That's a little too cool. I may only get, okay, so that's not bad. If you get close to what you want with your white balance tweak, if you can get close, but you're still saying, okay, that's a little too yellow, it's a little too green, it's a little too magenta, but it's the best you can do, that's fine. Close out of it, but then lower that layer opacity down some, so we're not seeing quite as much of it. So I think about right there. Better, 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 better. Okay. Now what I want to do, may come back up and increase that contrast a little bit more. Okay. Color boost. I'm going to do that. Okay. You can always open it up, see what it was, turn one off if you don't like it, that kind of thing. And I like what it did, but it's a little bit too much on her face, I think. Just a little bit. So I'm going to do a low opacity brush. So just barely cover up some of it. See how it's real faint? So the higher your brush opacity, the darker the area on it. So if I used 100%, it would be black. It would be black there. Okay. Might do a little bit more. Okay. Alrighty. So now I'm going to go and do the Skin Soft. And I just kind of work down this set. I'm just go down. Nice thing about layers is that you can always go back and tweak and change and delete, redo, that kind of thing. And they're very, very user-friendly. All right, so now I'm going to increase my brush opacity and do the little red screen trick. It's that little diagonal brush. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of start hightailing it here. It's a little too smooth. I'm going to bring it down. don't need to do that. Eye sparkle. Zoom in. Get that eye clarity going there. You can always increase it if you want a little more of that clarity. We want our catch lights are good. Okay, close that back up. Whites of our eyes are really white. Now what I'm going to do is come down here to the brushes they have. Okay, and I'm going to paint off color cast. I'm going to hit play. Open that one up. Now I just see some of her blush, some area right here, a little red cast that I want to kind of take care of. So I'm going to click on that. Make sure you're on the mask and not this layer. So that will not help you, or not the layer, but this icon. You need to be on the mask icon, and it'll have a little box around it. And I want a low opacity brush. That's good. And sometimes if it's not getting what you want, maybe try a different, like the magenta. Try that. Okay. It was just a little bit strong for me. All right. We can paint on rich color if we want to. I don't have real time for this. I will show painting on a warm vignette. I know I wanted a darker vignette to see. We'll just do that one. Okay. So you take a brush and you literally just brush around where you want to see a vignette. And a vignette is just a darkening of the area around the person or the subject. Now this is a little significant, okay? So I'm gonna back up, Command Z. It's not what I wanted. So I'm gonna go a lot lower opacity and kind of just go around like that. Now it's probably still too much, it's not so great, so I'm gonna back it down. Or you can also darken in everything so that it really is kind of, she's more of the center. There we go. Depends on what you want, okay? I think I might actually like the airiness in the back. Go to your history, take a snapshot, name it. So we've got your clean edit here, and we can see there's before, there's after, with just a few actions. And then we can run some creatives on it. So we could do like a center light. We could also do like honeysuckle. Oh, it's beautiful. Now, I want to show you when you run actions and you do something and the action really lightens it up a lot more, and you go back and think, oh, I wish I hadn't lightened her up anymore. You can go back to one of those layers and fix that. So I might say, okay, well, this center light, I really don't want all of that, or I don't want it at all. So I might delete it. So just utilize those layers. I might go back and say, oh, this white balance 6, that was a little bit too much. Let me lower the layer opacity. So you can always go back. You can go back and forth between the layers. I can come in here to the eyes and keep working on the eyes. That is the beauty of layers. And you can layer one action on top of the other. It's not like a preset. We could run honeysuckle, then I could run elegant right on top of that if we wanted to. So there's our clean edit. There's honeysuckle. Oh, I love that. And there's before. Let me show you about the, so if you want to see before and after side by side, what you can do is make your snapshot and then right click and do new document. Okay, so now we have a new document, and this one, I think, that's not her. That's it. Okay, I'm not going to use this one. Okay, Let's delete that. Don't save. Okay, so I want to move. So what I'm going to do is do Window, Arrange, and I want 2 up vertical. Okay, and now, there we go. So before on the left, after on the right. Big difference, huh? Big difference. Okay, so let me show a little bit of the finishing actions, and that's where we're going to sharpen, maybe reduce for the web, that kind of thing. What you want to do really is save your clean edit first, which I didn't save the clean edit on this one, did I yet? Save your clean edit, then do your creative and save that. So you're going to have 2 different versions. Then you decide which one do I want to show? Which one do I want to show online? And then that is the one that you then resize and sharpen. And it is best to resize it first and then sharpen. Okay, so we're going to use this one. I'll do this one real quick. I'm going to go back to Window, Arrange, Consolidate to Tabs. Okay, so let's pretend I saved it. So I'll just save as, I'll just go ahead and save it. There we go. All right, and now I am going to go ahead and flatten it. Discard hidden layers. So there's some layers like this black and white layer that's not active. Do you want to discard it? Sure, that's what I want to get. I want to get rid of it. And let it flatten it. Okay, so now what I want to do is come down here. Oops, move this back out so I can see better. All right, and this set also has where you can make a snapshot. So if you're not sure about making snapshots, this set has where you can make a snapshot. Okay, all right, so I'm going to vertical sharpen and resize for web. So click and I'm going to hit play. All right, so it resized it, and then there's sharpening. Now, there's a mask here because it's saying, hey, you can conceal some of this sharpening in areas if you want to. So turn it off and then turn it back on. And I don't see any areas that are really bothering me, so I'll leave all of the sharpening. If the hair was getting out of, too much detail to it, then I could use a black brush and brush on it and conceal it like I just did if I needed to. Okay, so once that's done, I'm going to hit flatten. Now, I do recommend, again, there's all these different camps. There is a no watermark camp and there is a watermark camp. And there is no happy, fast way to really do the watermarks. A really simple way is to type on it. Also, there's brushes. I'm big into watermark brushes, but the easiest is just to type on it. And I know this is outside the parameters of this webinar, but I just want to show you this. So, and you can install all kinds of fancy fonts. Anything you download to your computer and install for, say, Word or Pages or whatever you have, it will also show up in Photoshop and Lightroom. Okay, so I want a white, and let's see. That's not what I want. So you can change the print. So let's just say I'm going to go with something easy. Okay, let's just say that. All right. So I'm going to click, and it's too big. Let's do that. Let's say www.prettyactions.com. I recommend if you have a photography site, then I recommend doing some type of, like your web address or your photography name, anything like that. Okay, you can lower the opacity so it's see-through a little bit more. We can come in here and stretch it out, move it around, what have you, whatever you want to do. Okay, I'm just saying I would do something just to prevent. And if somebody shares your picture, then your photography site is on there. This is a little bit harder because of it, but I don't know where I place it. Well, maybe there. Anyway, so do something little, in my opinion. If not, you can ignore me, and then save it. All right. I'm gonna delete that because I'm sure if they want to use this photo, they'll put something on it. Okay, and then we're going to save it as a JPEG, And now I'm going to do edit. Quality of 10 is good. You can do larger, but it's really it's going to make the file size a lot larger and you don't need it to be. 10 is a good one, so just leave it there and hit OK. So now you have, this is for the web. The reason you want to reduce for web, so let's say you have a blog. Well, if you do a web size, it's going to load faster for your viewers, and that's important. If a site is too slow for me, I click on out. I don't have the patience. So you want it to be faster to load and takes up less bandwidth, and it's a lot less on your storage as well on your own computer, because you're in it with a print version. You don't need to share a print version online. It's overkill. The web size is fine, which is 72 dpi and anywhere from 900 to 2,000 pixels wide, depending on where you're sharing it. Okay. Now, if we were going to do it for print, there is one for print as well, because we're not going to reduce the file size for that, are we? Okay, so now I hope I've covered everything with actions. Let me just, I had jotted down some notes and make sure I get everything. And I wanted to go down through my notes. I think that is it. So I am eager to hear your questions about actions. Oh, and this picture I love too, so I need to save that one so that Laura can use it if she wants to, or Carlin. Okay. All right, let's see. I did see some people had trouble with audio at first. You're correct. Okay, so Lourdes mentioned there's not a snapshot feature in Elements. You are correct. And every year I hope that they'll add it, and they haven't. But what you can do is like a new document. So there's still the new document option, and that will allow you to save your layers and have that there. If you flatten, so Lisa asked, once you flatten, can you ever go back and readjust the layers that were flattened? And that is a great question, Lisa. And the answer is no. Well, the answer is yes, but no. So what happens if okay. So her question was, if I flatten the layers, can I ever go back to them? So if I take a snapshot at this point in time, this is actually a duplicate. Let's see, there we go. If I take a snapshot of this point in time, so this is flatten example. All right, so I have that, and then I flatten it. Okay. And then let's say, oh, let's add a texture. Let's add some other stuff. Let's add a texture, which is an image overlay that we shoot light through, and it's beautiful. So if I do some other stuff into it, and then later, so I'm just going to run an action here just to, okay, so this is soft and hazy combos, so I can turn on some different hazes. Okay, so I can turn that off. That's soft clementine. Oh, that's pretty. I can lower it down a little bit. Or if I do this, and so if I do a few things to it, and then I edit some more, and then later I'm like, her eyes are over sharp. I really should fix that. I want to go back. I can't go back to it unless I go back to that snapshot, and then everything I did. Oops, where's that snapshot? Everything I did from here on out is lost. So I can get back to it, but I lose everything I did going forward after the flatten. Does that make sense? So once it's flattened, it's like you're starting fresh, and the only way to get back to it is get back to a snapshot, and then you have to do that other stuff over again. Again, I only flatten if it was very easy for me to duplicate, and it just depends. If I have to fix a lot of color casts and I have to do a lot of type of almost like a cloning, a lot of different things to it, then I try and leave my layers open as much as possible. But if it's a fast edit, doesn't take long, then I just do what I need to do, flatten, do what I need to do, and go on down the road. not afraid of flattening. As long as, you know, but you'll know if you think, okay, I may need to come back to this spot. If you may need to come back to that spot, then don't flatten. I hope that helps. Can I talk briefly about the order of layers? You put the face edit at the bottom. Well, I didn't. The action did, which is interesting and a great observation, Sandra. So a lot of people, when they're editing, and I talk about this in the layers webinar that I've taught, they will, and I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen. So let's say somebody decides to do skin smoothing, and they're doing it on their own. So I'm doing it on my own here. So let's go through blur. Okay, Gaussian blur. Let's just going to use this one. All right, so I'm going to blur it. All right, it's not a very good one, but okay, and I'm going to add a mask, and I'm going to turn it over, and then I'm going to, all right, so these are the steps I'd have to go through. It's a lot easier to press an action. Okay. All right, so I'm going to blur the skin. All right. There we go. And then I decide, okay, I'm going to come back to the background, and now I'm going to, oops, not that. Let's, oh yeah, let's do that. And let's brighten it up a little bit. Okay. All right. Something's not looking right, is it? Do you notice the face looks kind of bizarre? Let me make it more extreme here. Okay. And that is because it's looking from the top down. And so what it's seeing is this dark image, this a little bit underexposed image. That's what it's seeing first. And then it sees the brightening. Well, the dark part is covering it up everywhere else. I mean, we're seeing it bright everywhere but where I brushed. Okay? Now, if I just drag this down, all is well, right? That one we didn't need. Because we're seeing the bright layer first and then the skin smoothing. So it's bright overall, and then we see the skin smoothing one. So it looks from the top down. Now, that particular action throws that skin smoothing to the bottom for that very reason, I'm sure. Because if you have a bunch of layers open and you run a skin smoothing action and it stays up at the top, when I had Everyday Elements, I was the owner of Everyday Elements, and the actions I made for Photoshop and for Photoshop Elements, I would do a pixel stamp so that it actually captured all of those layers below it and made a new one. I didn't take a background and drag it up. I hope that makes sense. I know it's probably more advanced, I'm sorry, but just anyway. But it's a very good question, very observant, and I hope that answers it okay. Okay, I'm sorry, every time I go to the questions, it throws back to the my internet browser. Okay, how do you know when to change the opacity of the brush and when to change the opacity of the action? Great question, Vicki. So what she is saying, how do you know, all right, how do you know when to, say, change the brush? So if I'm going to run an action, let's come back to this one, okay? How do I know when to, what can I run? So this one right here, I really don't need to use a brush to mess with it because it's all open. It's a open layer or group. It's showing us everything. It's got the white mask. And so here, I really only would adjust the layer opacity. Now, I got to fix the white balance. I can't help it. It's distracting me terribly. And it's not quite right, but I'll lower it down a little bit. Okay. All right. And I come down. Let's do a few things here. Okay. So the skin smooth is a good one to do an example. And so here, so the previous question was about why did the skin smoothing get put at the bottom? So watch this happen. I'm going to play it. I'm currently at the top layer on clean contrast, but watch what happens when the skin action is run. It throws it to the bottom. There we go. Now, the current question I'm answering is, how do you know when to adjust the brush opacity and when to adjust the layer opacity? There are certain ones. So on skin smoothing, I typically use like 70, I generally use about 75% brush opacity. Teeth and eye whitening, I always use like 50% brush opacity because I can always add more. I can always add more. Whereas if I go with 100%, then I'm busy taking away and tweaking it, but I can always brush on. It's cumulative. So I can brush on more and it's not a problem. Sometimes it's just like a teeter-totter. It's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And sometimes I can get the look I want with just the layer opacity. And then sometimes I decide, no, I want it to be a blend of brush opacity and layer opacity. And I'm probably not answering the question exactly how you want it. Just try. You will come to a point where you realize, man, I wish I'd used a lower opacity brush. So it's just because you usually can just control things too with the layer opacity, but I tend to use both. Then I feel like I have a little more control over it. Okay, so I would do that with that, but the teeth I often use teeth and eyes I use like 50% because it can be very strong. Now the nice thing too about that is that say teeth and eye whitening, it's usually the same layer, and so I can use a stronger brush. So let's pretend I'm whitening the teeth and we can see her teeth. I'd use a stronger brush right here and then lower my brush down and go right here. It doesn't affect where I just brushed. So each time I change it, it's just for the next time I click down. So I could have a lower effect on the eyes. So that's a great example of when you would want to really make use of your brush opacity, because you can't control both the teeth and eyes with just the layer opacity. But that's a good question. If my audio is cutting out, it's more than likely it could have been that you're trying to stream too much. Too many things were like going on for you, like at my house, I got multiple kids streaming. Either they're playing video games or watching a movie, and so that can interfere with it. But I've got super high speed internet, or it could be go to meeting and I don't know it, or go to webinar. Sorry. Okay, we are recording this. Somebody wants to go over the white balance again. I sure will. I love teaching that because that can have a huge impact on your photo. Huge impact. So here's that one. So I'm going to delete it, okay? All right. I'm going to click on the little circle that's half white, half black, or you can click on your Adjustments tab, and you see all these little icons. And the adjustment of the levels, sorry, the levels just look like a bunch of vertical squiggly lines. So this is your levels. And it has a black dropper, a gray dropper, and a white dropper. Click on the gray dropper. And then click on the whites of the eyes. And if you don't have the whites of the eyes, then try and click on something that should be neutral. So say a building or pavement or a button or something. Teeth sometimes can help. So here I could try and click down here. And it's too green, I see. So I might click on this down here. I think we might get the same effect. All right. See, I'm clicking in her vest, on the little white area of her vest. So I can just keep clicking and you can just keep going until you find something that's closer to what you want. And you might find it exactly what you want. And sometimes I'll even go a little step further. Sometimes I know right away, okay, there's a little bit too much green in this. So let me go to one that's got too much green. Well, actually, it's nice, isn't it? Let's keep clicking. All right, too much green. That one's got too much green. See where it says RGB? Click right there. Go to your green panel, or green word. And then in the gray slider, see it says 121.22? Click that and go down. So I have too much green, so I'm going to drop it back down. That's not what I want. So I'm able to kind of manipulate it a little bit. Then we'll go back to our layers. You can always double click back in the icon and it opens up your adjustment panel again, and we can tweak it if we want to. You can start all back over. Or we could lower the opacity, layer opacity, and say, okay, it's a little over the top, so let me drop it back. Let me conceal how much, or reduce how much we see of it. All right. Pure Color Workflow does work with CS6. I'm using CS6 right now. It may not look like it because I've changed the color of my interface. And a lot of people think I'm not using CS. I'm using CC, I'm sorry. But also works with CS6, CS5, CS4. A lot of times people think I'm working in a older version of Photoshop because I have it lighter. And I'll show you how to do that really quick. So if you're on a PC, go to Edit and then down to Preferences. On a Mac, click on Photoshop and then Preferences. Oh, come on. Oh, go over. Just click on General and then Interface. And so your interface might be dark like that. Or actually, probably that, right? I don't like it so dark. It bothers me. So I opt for the lighter gray color. There's two grays. For the darker of the light grays.